All right. Well, Roselyn, I am so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. To my listeners who don't know you, I'll love it if you can introduce yourself. I'll just kind of go ahead and begin explaining a little bit how you and I came to be in each other's space, if you will. A few weeks back, I had a gentleman named Stanley on my podcast, and he warmly recommended that you and I should get into a conversation with each other. And that's pretty much all I know about you, that it's a recommendation. So I'm super excited to get to know you better and for you to get to know me better. So welcome to the show, Roselyn, and I would love it if you could introduce yourself to my listeners.
Thank you so much, Maggie. It sounds like you took a leap of faith and just like, you know what, let me just go ahead with what Stanley recommends and just like trust it. So thank
Absolutely.
you so much. I feel honored you having me here.
Thank you.
So a little bit about me in a nutshell. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the United States, and I have been practicing human behavioral related work over the past 15 years. And I have always been very passionate about helping people and just like being there for them, understanding more so, like understanding the root of things. And it was not until like past 5 years to 6 years that I went through a personal crisis.
Mm.
So the biggest shock that I experienced was that even with all the knowledge that I had around human behavior, like how was it possible for me to be going through that crisis? And it was a separation, a relationship separation
Mm.
from over like we had already like almost 20 years together.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't see that coming, right?
Right.
So that is, I'm saying this because that is what led me to the type of work that I currently do,
Mm.
that it's founded in survival and in how much we as society don't dedicate time to connect with our nervous system, with our emotions at a subconscious level and
Mm.
still function and appear to be functioning very well because this is something that a lot of people would tell me, Maggie, is like, oh my God, look, but how it's possible. You guys are like the perfect couple. Like you have like your life together. And I really thought I did. I really thought I did, but I was just like so far from the truth.
Wow.
And once I connected with myself in a way that I didn't allow for almost my entire life, I saw that many wounds that I was convinced that were healed were certainly dictating the way that I was living my life, my relationships, my work, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And I became passionate about the work I do right now, and that's what I do is like helping people identify the source of their behaviors, of their like current life situations. If any person may feel that I have everything that I want, but for some reason I'm still not happy, not fulfilled, there's like not enough. I'm pretty sure that they're living with a source that it's founded in survival.
Right.
So that's pretty much kind of like in a nutshell what had led me to the current work that I do.
Wow, Rosalind, it makes perfect sense to me now why Stanley put us together. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing so vulnerably about what happened to you. And I can completely understand how when you don't see it coming, you kind of think you have your life figured out already. And I definitely understand that component of like, I have all of this knowledge. How do I not know how to utilize this in real time? I recently just wrote a book about this, how I
Uh,
have all of this knowledge and I know better, but yet I cannot embody it and use my agency to actually utilize all of this knowledge I have
yeah.
essentially. And you're right, it's about having to identify the wound and naming the wound. Do
Yeah.
you remember what that looked like to you when do you like do you know today like what the core wound was that made you kind of paralyzed in that situation besides the obvious point that like I mean heartbreak hurts and it is paralyzing and it is devastating,
Yeah.
so of course that is also so allowed to just go through, of course, but did you get to kind of the bottom of what it was that yeah, I guess led to the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I did. And I usually summarize suffering and the wounds that we experience in humanity to
Mhm.
five main wounds. And these
Okay.
are abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, and unworthiness. And I'm saying this to help you kind of like understand where my train of thought comes. And for
Right.
me, abandonment and unworthiness were the wounds that were dictating so much my life.
Right.
And the funny thing is that I knew that not being able to growing up with my father and also like having experienced other traumatic experiences in my life, I convinced myself somehow that I outgrew those things. I was able to talk about them, not feel triggered, see situations, and this is kind of like the misconception around trauma or like or not healing wounds is that there's a perception that if you can talk about it and if you don't have like flashbacks or if you don't have that you're healed,
Yeah.
but that's something that I came to face that it was pretty present in many times. And I know that before you started to record, we were talking about attachment styles.
Right.
So my attachment style was avoidant
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
because yes, and it was kind of like more, it was secure, but more like inclined to towards the avoidance. And
Hmm.
it's because I wanted to be needed. And that was
Mm.
coming from that abandonment
Mm.
because and then I was so terrified that if I open up myself, and that was one of the dynamics that were dictating the relationship that I had with my husband, and it was that if I open up myself to be vulnerable and to like allow you in, what if you leave me? I'm not going to be able to withstand that. It's just going
Yeah.
to be so heartbreaking for me if you leave me. And that was just dictating so much. It was very present in our
Right.
relationship because I rather him need me.
Mm.
And I did this not only with our relationship, but also with my clients, right? I wanted to be needed. So therefore, I just like dedicated so much to learn. I graduated summa cum laude for my degree, for my undergrad, for my graduate. And knowledge was not enough for me to heal this.
Right.
So it was not until I endured that crisis that the abandonment wound
Yeah.
revealed itself to me in a way that I have never allowed it.
Right. And it almost sounds like it kind of became the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Isn't that the
Oh,
irony of it
absolutely.
all?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, for
So,
sure.
so now I'm curious. Did you and your husband end up like figuring it out
We
and
did.
you did. So you're still married. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
we
Okay.
did.
Now I have a million questions. First of all, that just makes my whole heart so happy because you guys were together for 20 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a long time. Like, you have to make it work. That's immediately where
Yeah.
my heart wants to go, you
Yes.
know? So what were the action steps then? Like, what did you guys do in order to find each other again and to build the relationship up again?
Yeah, so that is such a great question because I've also worked with couples, and the main focus that typically people have whenever they want to work in their relationship is what the other person is doing wrong.
Right. Yeah.
And my husband and I actually separated for 10 months. We even
Mm.
like moved out and everything. And the reason he moved out is because I was so sure that I wasn't the problem,
Right.
right? I convinced myself that I wasn't the problem, and the reason I was still suffering is because he was still in the same under the same roof. So I
Mm.
asked him to move out. And when he did, Maggie, one of the biggest realizations that I had one moment, I was just like still blaming him, and I was just like playing this victim part, like after everything I've done and how much I've dedicated myself, like that this self-pity
Yeah.
party that I was having. A question came, not a question, just kind of like something like hit me, and it's like if he is the sole responsible of your suffering, he's gone right now. Why are you still then suffering?
Oh my gosh.
And that just like shook me to my core because I had a moment where I never had in my life before stopped and to really see that, wait, hold on. If like there has to be something within me,
Right.
right? And I experienced many things in my life, many traumatic experiences. And it was a moment where I like realized I never allowed myself to connect with that person who struggled with all of the because my approach was just like, you know what, life happens, I have to move on. So I
Mm.
never grieved. I never allowed myself to feel anger. I never allowed myself to feel sad around those
Mm.
traumatic events because I had to be strong.
Oh.
I convinced myself that I was alone, that I only could rely on myself.
Oh my gosh.
And when and that's where the abandonment, the unworthiness revealed
Mm.
to me. And when I decided to leave my husband alone and just like, Rosalind, work on yourself. Like really let him go in the sense that like release him from the responsibility,
Right. Wow.
from
Wow.
my suffering. And when I took responsibility for what I was feeling and I said yes to the most terrifying moment in my life to face the unworthiness
Mm.
and the abandonment and the questions that those wounds pose, which is like you're not lovable, no one cares about you.
Oh,
I even get goosebumps just like saying this out loud, but I never allowed myself to face that and to
wow.
feel how those wounds felt at a physical level, not at a cognitive level.
Right.
When I went, allow myself go through that, and when I healed from that place, I was able just to, by taking responsibility on my end, see many things that my husband would say that it would make sense. I because he would say things such as like this, like you're so strong that if we ever separated, you will be fine. And I
Mm.
would like never understand that, but those things came to mind like, okay, so I wasn't allowing him really to be in. He would never
Mm.
see me cry. He
Mm.
rarely see me cry. So, and if like he was the person I've been like most intimate and spending my life, I would like go into the closet and hide by myself. And then I would just like wipe my tears, like, okay, let's go, right? But I will
Oh,
always be there for others. But I would rob myself from one of the most beautiful things in intimacy and connections to allow others to be there for me.
yeah.
And when I allow myself that process and we kind of like had conversations, automatically it helped him also see the parts that he wanted to heal.
Right.
So it was just something so beautiful and so magical because we both, by me taking responsibility, just kind of like an energetic thing happened that he also took responsibility for his part. And
Mm.
we both focused without like saying like you have to work on this or without him saying you have to work on this. We both automatically like everything aligned and we both work on our ends and the communication, the connection, the energy between us flowed like so beautifully.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to connect in a way that we haven't done it before. We were both connected at first by wounds. We were hurt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it just kind of like we allowed ourselves to let that part of us die and just like really connect in a more loving, unconditional, loving way.
Right. Oh, that's such a beautiful story. And we, I mean, the kind of typical stereotype of an avoidant person too is that something taught them in their childhood that they needed to be independent and be
Yeah.
reliant on themselves. And you learned at a young age, it sounds like, to compartmentalize and to deal with it on your own and to not let your problems be anyone else's. And I wonder maybe, the reason why I like to dive further into these stories is because there are going to be someone who listens who might recognize themselves in the stories.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I wonder what you mentioned briefly, I think that you didn't have a father present growing up. So
Yeah.
what was the reason for that? And how was your relationship with your mother and vulnerability
Yeah.
as a young child?
Wow, wow. And this is a part of the conversation that I'm really passionate about because there's and probably have heard this so much. Before I answer your questions, people tend to categorize and to look into their childhood, whether it was traumatic or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And you don't have to have trauma because I'm gonna tell you that the thing that most shaped my perception in life
Mm,
weren't the traumatic things.
no.
Because I was molested, I was kicked out of my house after becoming pregnant as a teenager. I've been through so many things, and I never saw those things as impactful
Mm,
because the things that shaped my life were so subtle.
mm, mm,
And when I have conversations with people and they like realize that those are the true things that shape our life.
mm,
So, for example, even though I was molested, do you know what was the most traumatic thing I experienced? My parents' divorce. And people
mm,
minimize divorce so much because it's like so common that they don't. and they don't just kind of like take it into consideration. But you know how I found out that that was the most traumatic thing that I experienced in my life?
No.
Through meditation.
Oh,
Because
wow.
after doing this work, I have worked so much in connecting to my body that I have learned a process to kind of like identify the memory and the experience that gave birth to specific core beliefs.
Right.
And I have done already at this time when I was meditating, I've done already a lot of work around the molestation
Mm,
experience.
mm,
And then one day I was just like feeling this anguish. And I went back to him like, is it the molestation? I kind of like told myself, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's something deeper. It's something deeper. So I meditated and connected to my body, and a memory popped up. And I was 3 years old, three
oh,
years old. And all I had in my mind, the memories came up as me being strapped in a car seat in New York City. That's where I lived. That's
okay.
where I was born. And then all of a sudden being on an airplane and then like looking out the window of the airplane and then all of a sudden being in a completely different place. And as an adult now, I know that it was Puerto Rico, which was where my mom was originally was.
Okay.
And then after that, never seeing my father the same way.
Mm,
So after I saw those memories, I knew cognitively that that meant the moment that when my parents separated. But you know
mm,
what the feeling of anguish was? I was very close with my father, and I felt that I wasn't taken into consideration for that
right.
separation. I wasn't
Oh,
like told or explained or and there was probably no way of me like escaping that feeling because I was 3 years old, my mom and when and but I wasn't taken into consideration. I
mm,
felt that my voice didn't matter for that decision, for that move. So I decided to call my mom, like, I want to confirm that. And when I told her, she's like, that's exactly how it happened. Like
mm,
everything, because I was like, I went very specific with the memory that came up. And my mom was like, that's exactly how it happened. And I never thought of talking to you because you were 3 years old.
right,
I thought you weren't going to understand. But
right,
what I felt was that I wasn't taken into consideration. I didn't matter, which
right.
was the same feeling that I had when I was molested and then in other moments in my life. So that helped me to understand so much the avoidance
Right.
that if I'm not taken into consideration, then I cannot rely on others. I just have to like look for myself. I have to be independent. No one cares about what I think. No
Mm.
one cares about what I think. That was the foundation.
Oh my
And
God.
then there were other things that my mom was like she was a workaholic. She was working all the time. So my father wasn't around because he was in a different country. And my mom, she was a single mom. She had no, and I understand the rationale. She had no other choice but to work because we were four. Yet there wasn't an adult always present.
Oh,
So I had to like to do good in school, I had to rely on myself because there was no one to sit down and just to explain. We had no internet by then, right? So you
right,
had to like go through encyclopedia and try to figure out by yourself.
right.
And
Encyclopedia.
whenever, yeah, I know, right? And then when we wanted and when we wanted something financially, my
Mm,
mom would say, I cannot afford that because your father is not paying child support. So
mm,
those comments, I never thought of it as traumatic.
mm.
Yet I know how deeply it's rooted in my relationship with money,
Wow. Yeah, there you go.
in my relationship in on the unworthiness, because it's like not only your father's not around, but he's not also like sending you money. So it
Mm.
means that I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy. And
Oh,
these are the things I'm providing these examples because no one escapes this. No one
mhm.
escapes this. Yet that doesn't mean that we can continue to live our lives in a way that our felt identity led us to keep us protected or safe.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's such a remarkable story. Did you ever end up getting a relationship with your father ever again?
Yes, now as an adult,
Mm.
I kind of like after that part of as part of my healing process, I realized all the resentment that was buried, suppressed.
Yeah.
I always thought that and here's the funny thing, Maggie, I always thought that I like didn't hate him because we were taught not to hate
Hmm.
because hate is such a strong word.
Right.
But you know what? Subconsciously, if you hate, you hate.
Yeah.
And if you
Yes.
don't acknowledge it, you're repressing
Oh,
it,
yeah.
which
No,
is
you.
the crazy part.
You're so right. Resentment is
And
so heavy. Mm.
and So I always said to myself, and if you say something, your subconscious will like determine whether if something needs to be suppressed or healed.
Yeah.
So by me saying like I don't hate him, I forgive him, I don't have any problems with him, I understand, or right, like by saying all of those things, I was reiterating to that child that you're not worthy of feeling this.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
it's
like
not that we have to rationalize, right? Like to hate and to wallow in that, but I
to
needed to
survive.
feel that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's a
So
survival instinct. And of course, like I love how you're kind of talking in this sense that you're referring to this inner child, right? Where that inner child deserves to hear the truth too, because that was your experience, no matter how old you were, no matter the consciousness, no matter what our parents deem is uh, worthy of knowledge for a child, or like
yeah.
I'm so sure, or at least I feel very positive that a lot of adults who are separated or divorced and had children have hid behind this, like, but the child doesn't understand anyways, especially if they're at a certain age. But that's just not true. A child experiences everything. I mean, they experience the energy that is going on, they experience the stress, they
Absolutely.
experience all of it. And just because you were three, although you were young, you'd still had 3 years with your father at the three most formative years of your life. So
Yes.
of course it mattered. And and I've heard so many people who says that, like, yeah, my parents were divorced, but I was so young, so I don't really remember anything about it. And these are also the most avoidant people that I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's exactly the point that I love this conversation because I genuinely believe that this is the missing piece.
Mm.
The we all have like within the first 5 years, all of our experiences. And this is and the reason no one escapes this is because the brain is designed that
Mm.
way to
Yeah.
focus on what it's safe, what it's not safe.
Yeah.
And it used that data to set a foundation to keep you safe.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like a survival foundation.
Right.
But as adults, if we have this information, I genuinely believe that we can make an active, conscious choice to say, okay, I understand that this was needed. It was necessary in order for me to survive, and it was helpful because it
Yeah.
was helpful. It's not necessarily a negative thing.
Yeah.
But now, as an adult, I get to make a choice whether if I continue to achieve or pursue or do things, whether to prove my worth, which is survival, or just because I love it and it's just my natural state of creativity, thrive to love. It's
Hmm.
completely different.
Right.
And
Yeah.
most of people are living in that survival state without knowing because it has been normalized in society.
Oh my gosh. And it's driving me crazy how normalized it is. Like my parents' generation or our parents' generation was, or maybe even grandparents' generations were the generation who normalized divorce. And I can understand how the trajectory happened, but what we fail to understand in the process is how selfish it is in many ways, and how it's also coming from a separate wound that isn't being identified. And I also want to address something that you were talking about, because are you religious at all?
I'm very spiritual.
Okay,
Yes.
got you. So
I'm
I'm a
not religious, I'm extremely spiritual.
got you. So I'm a Christian myself, and I remember reading in the Bible, because I think a lot of us have this perception, and I'm sure, based on what you're saying, my what I'm interpreting based on what you're saying is that there was a part of you that didn't want to be angry at your father, and probably also didn't want to be angry at your mother for making the decisions that they made, because we want to honor our mother and our father, and it says so in the
Yeah.
Bible:
Yes.
honor your mother, honor your father. And I have battled with that so much, because it was like, well, I want everything that I want in life, and I want to do what Jesus would do. But to honor both of them, that's really hard for me. I don't really know how to go about doing that. I felt so much shame and anger
Yeah.
around that term, because I was like, but I am angry. The child in me is angry. I feel neglected. I feel disregarded. I feel like I
Yeah.
wasn't prioritized. I feel like
Yes.
it didn't matter that the impact that their behavior had on me, but I was angry. So it was like, by having this nagging on me that, like, well, but I have to honor my parents. It's like, but that's also disregarding that inner voice that really needs to just be heard, and that child within me that just needs to be
Absolutely.
hugged and acknowledged. And I wonder if you feel anything resembling that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I I am spiritual and like God is with me every day. And
Mm.
I grew up Catholic, so I'm very
Mm.
familiar with Christianity
Right. Yeah.
and its principles. And there's so much that and this is right a little bit of my perception, that there's so much truth in what Jesus talks, and there's so much love
Mm.
within his words.
Right.
Yet because of the perception that we have that it's coming from survival, a lot of it's misinterpreted.
Right.
It's misinterpreted and it's filtered through a window of fear or shame
Mm.
or guilt.
Yeah.
But if you heal from that and you connect with Jesus' words and or Buddha's or other prophets, Mother Teresa,
Mm.
Gandhi, it's just like you can see that they all share a common truth, and
Right.
a truth that is liberating, a truth that it really sets you free.
Yeah.
And it's how it's been interpreted, right? And I
Hmm.
get it, right? Survival, it's as human species, we have our body, which is like the flesh, and it's something
Hmm.
that we do need survival, because if someone comes towards you with a gun, you're not gonna go, this person, I see their energy. Or like you're gonna go like
Yeah. No.
run,
Whoa.
run because they have a gun. So we
Yeah.
need the survival brain. We need that part.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
it's like how can we also create a balance
Yeah.
within how we filter everything in our surrounding, the information that we receive,
Yeah.
because now we live in a moment in life that there's so much information and we have relied so much
Mm.
on a rational, logical brain
Yeah.
that even that part, it's being guided by survival. And
Yeah.
now our bodies, our spiritual, like the connection with God, it's calling on to us to really discern which is like what's really the truth
Yeah.
within our spirits and what it's not.
Yeah.
So I hope I answer your question, but that's kind of like the perception that I
Yeah,
that I
no,
have.
I really like what you were saying there about balance, because what I kind of found along the journey kind of recently, I must acknowledge, is that I can be angry and grateful at the same time. I
Oh,
can
absolutely.
like I can hold space for acknowledging what hurt and also recognize my responsibility moving forward. Like I can't be like, this happened to me, therefore I am, because then I'm the only one suffering. Like I can be like, this happened to me. I understand that impacted and shaped some of the decisions that I made, but my conscious mind now knows better and am now able to move forward with a place of gratitude. But life was given to me. I have had a beautiful life. There's been so many aspects of my childhood that was also beautiful, and I am here and I am whole and I am worthy. Um, and I can also find this approach that is balanced and hold space for both of it and find forward momentum, in the sense that with attachment theory kind of as a foundation, because it's so helpful in just understanding why I have felt the way that I have. It's somewhat I remember writing in my book that there was this moment where it's like shame, because oh my gosh, there's a term to explain my behavior. But then it was also like, okay, but then there's also a recipe moving forward. So thank goodness I don't have to stay stuck in this, because there's also this
Yes.
fear that like, am I going to keep repeating the cycle? Is it
Yeah.
ever, am I going to be able to break out of like these toxic
Terrifying, right?
relationships? And yeah, so there's all of these
Yeah,
emotions, and it's also a journey. It's okay to like the way that I'm trying to look at it sometimes is that like, hey, 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward is still progress. Like it's
it
still
is.
forward momentum. But it's also just because I think somehow along, I don't know if this is true for you, but somewhere along my journey of healing and understanding myself better, there was these moments where I was like, oh, okay, I have all this knowledge. Like, oh, I have figured it all out now. I get it now. And then it's like I'm met with this, I'm presented with this opportunity to utilize this knowledge. And somehow it's just, oh no, 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 but you have embodied patterns and behavior that you like have to reprogram in your mind or somehow to not do it again. So it's like you're always presented with new opportunities to make a new decision. It's like if you keep making the same decision, next time you're at like a crossroads, then you're gonna have the same results. It's like you meet yourself at the crossroad, and then it's like, okay, what
Yes.
decision did I make last time? Because that surely did not work. What do I do now? And it's like a
Yes.
constant a constant journey. It's like a constant
It is.
process. And for every time I found myself at these crossroads, it's like I'm realizing also, because you also mentioned this thing about like you want to blame or you want to look at that other person. It's like you're the problem, not me. And it's like, okay, what can I do in this situation to look at
Mhm.
myself and see my responsibility in this, as opposed to looking at my boyfriend, for instance, and be like, how can you fix how I'm feeling? And be like, how can
Yes.
I fix how I'm feeling?
Oh
Which
yeah,
is a
absolutely, for
constant.
sure.
I feel like it's just
And
a
I have been
constant
in that
process.
situation for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And I've come to a point whenever I feel like, okay, I have everything figured out, it means that I'm stagnant and I'm not challenging myself. I found a comfort zone place
It's like
because there's
you,
always a next level, and that's okay.
yeah.
Right now, I feel that it's a normal and it's a beautiful process, right?
Hmm.
Because before I used to resist so much and have this aversion to not feel or to pain, and apathy was kind of like my middle name.
Right. Oh, wow.
And now, whenever there's something that is distressing me, I know that there's a huge lesson and learning
Hmm.
reward coming. And
Right.
it's not that I'm masochist, but I'm like, okay, what I'm about to learn, right? What are you showing me?
Yeah.
I'm open. Tell me. I don't like this, but then I also like it, right? What it's coming my way.
Because you've learned at this point that you survive it, which is beautiful, right? That's also what I found to be extremely liberating in a healing process is that like first, like the first times I was experiencing heartbreak, I thought it would never pass, but now it's like, no, I've been here before. I know the gist of it. It was like you know how to go about it. But there's been moments where it's been incredibly paralyzing because you don't know better. But I kind of want to circle back a little bit to you and your husband because from what I'm gathering of the information that you're telling me, it's like you guys separate and then you kind of have this separate space where you're um, going on this introspective journey, as far as I'm understanding it. And
Yes.
so how did you then come to actually meet each other again, and how did you show up differently this time for it to actually work for you guys to get back together?
Yeah, there were so many different steps and there were so many different things that we did along the way to right now we have like we're in a really, really good place. And in the sense that even if we have disagreements and arguments, we know we manage them completely different.
Mm.
So the moment that and it was do you believe in energy?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right?
Everything's
So I
energy.
everything is energy.
Yeah.
And I have to say that this was the way that we kind of like came back together was definitely an energetic process,
Mm,
because at some point we even talked about divorce. We set a date. We were looking at information on how just to kind of like to perceive and move forward with divorce and everything. We just like we had those conversations. We
mm,
separated our bank accounts. I'm telling you, we were just like, really? And it was not until I kind of like released the control, the emotional, the energetic control over like wanting to influence the situation and really focus on my end,
mhm,
that eventually one day he invited me to eat. Like we spend like a time like without having any conversations or anything, but he invited me to eat. And by that time I already started to do like more deeper work on myself and focus and release him from any responsibility, emotionally speaking.
mm.
And because that's one of the key foundations. You have to do this work emotionally. You can say
Right.
all these things, but if like emotionally you're still like having some expectations and control,
Mm,
it wasn't working, right? I would say to myself, I'm good and I'm just gonna move forward and I release it to God, because I would used to say
mm.
this, but in reality, my body and my emotions, I was still holding so much control over the
Right.
situation. So when I genuinely released that, he invited me to for lunch. And then he said like, oh, I just wanted to talk to you and reconnect because I know that we've been like together, we have children together and everything. And then the conversation went, we just like had fun. We didn't like talk about the relationship or anything.
Mm,
And he said, I really would love for us to kind of like to at least remain friends or just stay connected. Because one thing we always knew is that we still loved each other.
right.
We still loved each other, but the wounds were the ones getting in the way.
Yeah.
So said, and he was like, he kind of like opened up and said like, I don't see like us not talking at all ever. And then we just kind
Yeah.
of like that kind of like gave way for us to, okay, let's just go ahead and then try. So we just like, I think he felt me in a different way
Mm.
because I would do things that probably I wasn't, and it also allowed him to be his true self
Mm.
because energetically speaking, the problems to this point, I cannot even pinpoint what was the reason why we separated. It's just that we weren't happy. That was how we
Yeah.
could summarize it.
Wow. Yeah.
But in my mind, I always wanted him to change, to do
Mm.
things differently,
Mm.
to be a different person.
Mm.
And energetically, I think he felt that. That
Yeah.
wasn't something that this is something that we talk now.
Right.
But when we came back together, we didn't know how to word it.
Mm.
And when I did that, when I released him, and I'm like, Rosalie, no, he is who he is,
Mm.
and you have to accept him unconditionally. If you choose to give this up relationship an opportunity, you have to really let go of him ever changing.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Maggie, when I did, I was like, you know what? I release it, I let it go. He would come to me, you know what? I've been thinking that I do these things and I really want to work on it. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God, this is just, I'm telling you, things
Whoa.
like that would happen so common that I'd like, yes, definitely energy is a thing. It is a thing. It is a thing.
Wow.
People may hear this, and I'm telling you, this is how I lifted. Just by me, like really letting go, we
Yeah.
have this has happened so much that now I'm not even surprised by it. But at first, like, is it this easy? Is it this easy, right?
It's just letting go. I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, that's kind of the core of attachment theory too, especially for someone who was an anxious attached, which is kind of where I fall on the spectrum, is more on
My
the
husband was on that spectrum.
yeah. So for me, I would always find myself clinging to things. Like if I found a threat that like you're drifting away from me, then I would be like, no, you're not. Like put my claws on the
Yes.
situation, and thinking that if
And I
I
think that's what my
insert
husband
myself
felt.
yeah.
That's what my
And
husband
and
felt.
here's what's so interesting. I've been reading well, reading is the incorrect term. I've been listening to podcast episodes where Alison Armstrong has been a guest. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's explaining this where she's talking about like women when they are criticized, they change, which is why women criticize men and we believe that they will change too because that's what we do. But men do not change because of that because they're criticized. It actually has the complete opposite effect on them. And what I kind of realized too, I love that you had this realization, by the way, where you're like, you know what? This is the man that I chose to marry. This is how he is. I can no longer change him. And then with that energetic exchange that you were explaining, he then went ahead and acknowledged the things that you were probably communicated earlier. But from this place, he was more willing to look at it from like I want to do something about this. And it's remarkable because it's one of these things that it's not really easy to explain. You can only kind of see it happen. It's like if you know, you know. But I
Yeah.
can relate to this because like what it looks like for me is that I have to consistently just open my palms and let the butterfly come to me. You can't chase a
Yeah.
butterfly, but if you open your palm,
Absolutely.
the butterfly will come to you. And you won't your like some ways that I think about it sometimes is that like if right now I'm in a long distance relationship, so sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to insert myself in the situation, otherwise he'll forget about me. And then it's a thought. I'm not doing it's not like something I'm action like it's not like an actionable step. It's more like, oh, I'm thinking this thought, but then I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to insert yourself. He knows he's fully aware of who you are and the fact
Yes.
that you're around. Like
Yes.
you don't have to insert yourself to the situation. And then I'll like go 5 minutes later, he's texted me. So it's like, okay, yeah, there you go. Let
But
go
the thing with
and let him
people,
come to
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing
Yeah.
with people with anxious attachment is that they are very, very, very attuned with social cues.
Yeah.
And my husband would pick up things on me, like that he would see in me
Mhm.
that I wasn't even aware.
Right.
It was just like, so before, and here's how the energy thing works, right? Every emotion emits an energetic frequency
Yeah. Yeah.
that even though people cannot pinpoint or word it, it's present and it's influencing the dynamic.
Right.
So for me, control will be like, are you gonna do this? Like, what are you gonna do it? You haven't done it, right? So that in my mind is just like he never does what he like it always have to be behind, right? That's the energy. So of course he will feel like, oh, right,
Hmm.
like I
Hmm.
don't trust him.
Yeah.
And whenever he like would like approach me like, "Hey, how are you doing?" or "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." He would
Mm,
like, "No, but are you upset with me?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine." I'm not saying right. Those dynamics would just like, and these are things that are so common, yet eventually on the long term it accumulates and it builds something up in each of the person's mind that
yeah.
affect the relationship.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
It's
I
really
thoroughly believe
fascinating.
that. I love how you said the word trust because what I've also learned in this deep diving into Alison Armstrong's theories is that what men value the absolute most is respect and trust. They need to know that we respect them and they need to know that we trust them. And I think for an anxious person or for some women in general, like we are able to do so many things at once, whereas men are very single task focused. So when we put our own perception of
Expectation,
how
right?
things can be done onto a man, we will constantly be disappointed. And we're essentially telling them, not even necessarily with words, but maybe even with words that, like, I don't trust you to do the things that I asked you to do. And that will cause a friction. And we're not even aware that we're doing it half the time, but they
Yes.
feel it. And we certainly feel it. And that is the block that is often causing a lot of damage in relationships is when women
Yes.
project their own sense of doing things on men instead of just trusting that they say that they will do the things that they said that they would do. And
Yeah, and then they say
yeah,
that they're having communication problems, but it's not really communication problems. It's all of this energetic
yeah,
expectation, emotions, frequency taking so much place, and people don't haven't tapped into it, haven't accessed that.
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, this is such an interesting conversation. I love how Stanley understood that you and I would have a great conversation. He was so
Yes,
right. Oh my gosh. Well,
it's
so
very
okay,
intuitive.
so I'm now I'm more curious about all of these energetic things that you're talking about and stuff because I'm trying to think of like because I think all of us are when we're in a relationship, we just want things to work, right? And we all just like I mean, dating is hard, especially maybe now. I don't know if it's always been hard, but I mean, granted that there's so many I was gonna say children dating now, but it's like I mean us, but my parents weren't divorced, but there's a lot of children of divorce that are now dating,
Yeah.
trying to navigate this world where they kind of have this inherent belief that love ends, right? And
Yes.
so then you have the anxious and the avoidance often finding each other because
Hmm.
it's a frequency. That's what I talk about. So what I talk about in my podcast often is that when you look at attachment style, I like to look at it as a bell curve. So at the top of the bell curve, you have the secure person, and then you have the anxious and the avoidant on each side of the
Hmm.
spectrum. And the closer you get to a secure state of mind is actually increase in frequency. So that's
Hmm.
how I look at it. The higher the frequency, the more secure you are. And you can be anywhere on the spectrum, really, but you will
Yeah.
attract your opposite frequency and they
Yeah.
will mirror you in one way or another. So I'm trying to be very conscious about these things when I am triggered in my relationship to see what is it that they did that are triggered is triggered in me because whatever it's triggered in me is my responsibility to solve. It isn't their responsibility. But very often we go into relationships thinking that this person is going to fix our issue. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, the only person who can actually do something about how we feel about ourselves and how we show up in relationships is ourselves. So, what would you suggest for instance, like for people who then struggle to have agency and actually get to what it is that they're desiring in a relationship. I, for instance, found it really, really hard in the past to, for instance, leave a relationship when I knew it wasn't working, when I knew my needs weren't met. It's like I would communicate what I wanted and they didn't give it to me and then I stayed. It's like that was
Hmm.
bound to be doomed, right? Why do we do that? Like someone who might be in a situation like that, how would you suggest that they go about handling that situation?
No, that's such an important question. And in a short response, to do identity work. In
Mm,
a longer version, this is how I describe identity. There's the known identity, which is
mm,
like if someone asks you who you are and you just like have your own story and what is it that you're known, that which is accessed by your conscious. And there's also the felt identity, which
mm,
is tied to the subconscious. However, the felt identity, it's much more powerful than your known identity.
mm,
And to make a little more sense of this, remember when I was talking about the first 5 years being formative of what your brain believes that it's safe versus what's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I believe it happens is that picture your brain being a house, and then your nervous system within those 5 years and along your emotions are constantly assessing everything outside of the body, outside that house,
Right.
to whether if it's safe or not.
Right.
And everything that is considered safe, it's placed within some within like around the house. And then once your brain, the felt identity, has completely identified or has created an understanding of what's safe and what's not, it creates a fence around what is safe, and everything outside that fence becomes unsafe.
Mm.
So what I believe it happens when people talk about fight, flight, freeze, fawn response,
Mm-hmm.
they believe that it's whenever there's danger, it's kind of like a reaction for you to survive
Right.
or for you to respond. I don't see fight, flight, freeze response that way.
Mm.
I challenge that theory a little bit, because what I believe it happens is that it's the alarm system telling you that you are stepping outside that fence.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But if that but the thing is that as a child, we don't have a framework to what it's truth or false.
Mm.
So if what you learn that it's safe, it's, for example, if people that grew up in an unstable household where they constantly saw their parents fighting
Yeah.
physically, like domestic violence,
Yeah.
even though if the nervous system knows that that's not, like, logically you could know that that's not right,
Right.
believe it or not, your nervous system learned that it's safe, like that's how love is. And
Right.
anything outside of that,
Yeah.
you're crossing over that fence, which will
Right.
trigger fight, flight, freeze. So that all belongs to the felt identity.
Mm.
And to regulate that, you have to connect to that felt identity, those beliefs that are tied to it,
Mm.
right? I don't deserve, like, people are not going to love me if I'm not being hit, if I'm not being yelled at, or if I'm not being abandoned,
Mm.
right? Let's say first, because that part of that safety is attachment styles,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's survival. It's all about survival,
Mm.
right? If and because if you understand attachment styles from what it really is, it's to survive during your childhood, because as a baby you cannot satisfy your needs.
Yeah.
So the attachment is your best chance at surviving. So it's
Yeah.
survival. Attachment is survival. So
Mm.
once you understand attachment styles for what they are, and you regulate, and you emotionally are able to transmute and to change from those emotions to, okay, this is what I have felt that it's belief,
Yeah.
but it's not the truth.
Yeah.
And you find the opposite emotion that you're seeking, and you allow yourself to feel it, because one of
Yeah.
the most difficult things that was for me is
Yeah.
to receive, because as an avoidant, it's like, no, I'm not, oh, I have to satisfy myself. But if, like, anybody else comes to give me something nice, I'm just gonna question it. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I had to have that realization, and to, whenever someone gave me a compliment or gave me anything, a gift, for me just to leave it as thank you.
Mm.
Not just like, oh no, but why do you do it? No, just like, thank you so much.
Mm.
Thank you. And the first part of that process, for example, was just like so uncomfortable, because I wanted to just to return the gift or just like say something.
Mm.
But for me, it's just like, no, this is not my truth. So
Yeah.
all of that comes to attach to your felt identity, which is not your true self. Is what you learn to be safe.
Yeah.
It's just that we are disconnected somehow consciously with it, and we justify, and we can like have our own
Yeah.
identity. And it's like, how did once you connect with that felt identity, then you can use your known identity to make a choice whether if I choose to believe this and or not.
Yeah.
And changing from that place, it's much faster. It's more difficult in the sense because we're not used to feeling our emotions, right?
Yeah.
But changing from that place guarantees you more long-term um fulfillment, in the sense when the because mindset work without regulation, it's just
Mm.
going to take longer,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that felt identity is just going to clash, and whenever you're triggered, it's just going to take over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was this helpful?
Oh yeah, so helpful. I mean, I love how you're talking about this, and it actually triggered this memory in my mind too when it came to this example that you were using when it came to like if people were arguing and stuff. Like, of course, we're all going to just witness other people's behavior, like especially our caregivers, the people who shaped us. If we, the way we see our parents handle conflict, for instance, is also going to be embodied in how we
Yeah.
in later life handle conflict. Is if we saw our parents fight and then they were like, oh no, we're not going to do this in front of the children. What I learned, this was really interesting to me. I've actually talked about it in a separate episode, but I feel like it's so valuable that I'll bring it up again. So what I noticed is that right now I'm living with my brother and his wife and my parents, for instance. But besides the point, I remember hanging out with them one morning, and they were kind of setting plans and stuff for things they were going to do. So I saw kind of what happened leading up to the argument, and then I saw the argument happen. And as this is all happening, I can sense that, like, because I'm in the room, and although it doesn't concern me, it's like it's not my problem. I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm in the room, so I'm present when it's happening, and it's people that I care about. So I could sense this energetic shift in me where I was like, oh, this is uncomfortable. But then
Mm-hmm.
the next thing I saw is that I saw them solve the problem. And then I felt fine. Then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, whoa. And that, like, this happened to me just like a few months ago. So I was like, whoa, it made me realize that, like, it's perfectly fine for parents to argue in front of their children if they're doing it productively. If the children can see how it led to the argument, see the argument happening,
Yeah.
and then the repair. It's the repair part that is going to help children learn how to efficiently problem solve when they're in a
Absolutely.
similar situation. That was such a valuable lesson for me. I was like, wow, that taught me so much. But imagine all of those children where the parents were like, let's solve this later. We're not going to do this in front of the children, which is like a logical thought process for a parent to think that they're going to shield their child from like seeing something uncomfortable, but they've already witnessed the uncomfortable part, but they didn't get to see the repair, so they're still uncomfortable.
Yes.
Or what they
Yes.
saw is that, hey, you can escape, you can run away, you don't have to solve it. Like I've seen in my own like family or extended family, it drives me crazy when I see someone just cut contact with their like immediate family
Yeah.
because they're like, I'm just not gonna have anything to do with you. I just don't want to talk about it. I'm not gonna address it. I'm not gonna let you even know why I'm mad. I'm just never gonna talk to you ever again. I'm like,
Yeah.
do you realize that your children are observing you do this shit? Do you realize that
Yes.
life happens in a boomerang and they might just do the same shit to you? You're a
Yeah.
parent and you're doing this to your parent. You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's so insane to me that we're not more conscious of like how the decisions that we're making is also impacting our children. And
Yeah.
well, I don't have children on my own, but I'm just like I'm observing all of these things, and I find it so interesting to observe from afar, especially being in this space where I'm very invested in all of this, of course. But yeah, um, all very interesting things to talk about, Roselyn. I've had such a fun time talking with you. And do you feel like there's anything we haven't talked about yet that you want to share with my listeners?
I just want to kind of like share one if they are wondering how to ever like how if they want to like do work like this within themselves, like but they don't know where to start, I would suggest to like really allow yourself to increase or expand your self-awareness.
Yeah,
Because in order to do any work within yourself or to expand like you have to know yourself. How can you remove a spider that you have on your back if you don't even know that the spider is there, right?
right. Yeah.
So, in like work with your self-awareness, and most of the answers that you're seeking in podcasts or in other information or other places will be answered. And don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, I'm not minimizing podcasts or books or anything. Those are extremely helpful,
Hmm.
but also dedicating time to increase and expand your self-awareness
Yeah.
will give you much more answers that you can ever imagine.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. Is there anything kind of like actionable that you did in that process? Like, I've found that journaling or writing things out has helped. Like, what was something that you found to be helpful in the process of like, because I think a lot of people wonder, like, okay, so how do I increase my self-awareness? It's like I hear all of these podcasts, I read all of these books, but how can we embody what we now know and get more aware? Like, how would you recommend doing that?
Yes, yes. So for me, every person has their own, and
Hmm.
there are so many different ways that people can do it, but I'm gonna share the way that I did it.
Yeah.
And whenever my husband and I first decided to separate, I took it upon myself to make a commitment and challenge myself to journal every day, even if I
Mm,
had no idea what to write. There were
mm.
entries that it would say literally that I'm writing because I just made this promise, but I don't know what else to write. Like
Yeah, yeah,
literally, you will find that.
yeah.
But what I did, not only journal, I journaled for nonstop for several months.
Mm,
And the most powerful thing wasn't necessarily the journaling. It was that I took one time to review all of the entries and highlight things that I would find like common, repeated patterns,
mm,
thoughts that I felt that were just like ongoing, like in my mind, my cognitive process. Because sometimes I would just like, I'd call it dumpster journaling. You just like journal without even
yeah,
like making sense, like everything that comes to my mind.
right.
And I will do that a lot. And then I've noticed patterns, so many things like, wow, this is present. Like, so this is telling me something about myself. That's how it helped me just kind of like have the realization that I shared earlier about like blaming my husband and also the abandonment and the
Mm,
unworthiness. Because I just the thought of being replaced was something that was very present in those
mm.
entries. So that's how I was able to increase my self-awareness.
Wow, that is such good advice. I've done exactly the same. So I know that it's helpful. It's so helpful. And little did I know that all of these journals that I started years and years ago was gonna wound out to be the book that I currently like I yeah, kind of just finished writing.
Yeah.
And
Wow, awesome.
yeah, no, I mean it's so valuable. It's like it's not only helpful for us in real time, but then it can be helpful for other people in
Yes,
retrospect. So
sure.
it's so great. Wow, Roselyn, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me today. It's been such a joy getting to know you and learn from you.
Thank
And
you.
I would love to stay in touch with you.
For
Where
sure.
can my listeners find you?
I'm on all social media platforms, Insightful Essence. Pretty much is kind of like the handle for all of my, but also you can connect with me, my website, insightfulessence.com. And I
Insightful
just begin
Essence.
engagements. Yes, I just
Mhm.
begin engagements and coaching. So feel free just to reach out if you have any questions without any
Awesome.
commitment.
Oh wow. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
being
for
on my
having
podcast.
me. I love this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.